Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Chapter 6, Lesson 5. This is all about more two-step equations. So we're still going to be doing solving two-step equations. The only difference is it's going to look slightly different. So some problems, again, are written differently than 3x plus 6 equals 15. Because 3x plus 6 can be factored, if you remember correctly, from when we did our factors in expressions chapter. So we could factor a 3 out because 3x plus 6 has a common factor of 3. And if we do that, 3 on the outside, all that would be left would be an x plus 2 on the inside. So we can solve this actually a couple different ways. There are two different ways that we're going to look at. One of the methods is going to be the box method. The other one is going to be doing it mathematically. And again, there are two different ways. So first thing we're going to look at. Let's make this black. So 3 times x plus 2 equals 15. Remember, we always want to be looking at the order of operations. As we go through this, we want to go in this direction for the box method. So we do actually have parentheses. Those, in fact, are right here. So what's in those parentheses is actually what's going to be done first. So we're going to be adding 2. There aren't any exponents, but there is multiplication. And that multiplication is right here. So we're going to have a multiply by 3. And that equals 15. Remember, as we go through this bottom section of the box method, we always want to be looking at what's above it. So in this box here, we want to look in this box and see how can we undo it. So to get rid of a times by 3, we divide by 3. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now, in this box here, we'll look above it, where there's an adding 2. So to undo that, I'm going to subtract 2. And I have 5 minus 2, so x would be 3. That's using that box method we talked about last lesson. Now, mathematically, there's actually two different ways that we can do it. One will be less work, but the other one will probably make a little bit more sense. So again, we're going to be looking at PEMDAS. If we keep it written like this, with the distributive property showing up over in this section here, addition is not being done last because it's inside the parentheses. The multiplying by 3 is actually getting done last. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide. Remember, we always want to have our line down the middle too, so let's get that right away. We're going to divide both sides by 3. So all that remains is x plus 2 equals 5. Now I have a plus 2, so I want to subtract 2 from both sides, and I get x equals 3, which happens to be exactly what we got up in our box method. The other way that this can be done, again, it does say several up on top. Let's get rid of those notifications. There we go. What we can do is undo the distributive property right away. So we have 3 times x plus 2 equals 15. We can actually simplify this first. Remember, as we do the distributive property, 3 gets multiplied by everything on the inside. So the first one would be 3 times x, which would be 3x. 3 times 2, which is 6. And bring the plus sign in between. And now I have this kind of equation, which we did last lesson. Again, if I look at PEMDAS, now as I go through this, there is an addition problem. Let's make all these the same color now. So there is addition, so I'm going to undo that with subtraction. Let's make my line first. You want a purple. There we go. All right. So I want to subtract 6 first. So I'm going to be left with 3x equals 9. Next one, there is multiplication. That's right here. So I want to undo that by doing division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and again, I still get x equals 3. So 3 different methods to help us get the exact same answer. So it's your choice which one you want to use. The box method up on top here is a very visual way of kind of laying out and organizing your work. These two mathematical ways are a little bit more up and down. They're more algebraic. They're not nearly as neat and visual to look at, but you can still use them. So let's look at example 2 here. Solve 4 times 5 plus b equals negative 12. This is my favorite method, this one right here. This one is my favorite, so we're going to put a star here. Let's make it actually look like a star. This one is my favorite here. And fill it in. That one's my favorite. So that's the one that I'm going to use. If you like doing it this way by getting rid of the distributive property, getting rid of those parentheses, please do that. If you like the box method, please do that. All right, so PEMDAS. First thing that's being done is parentheses and then multiplication. So as I go back this way, I'm going to do the multiplication, take care of that first. So there is multiplying that's happening right here. So I'm going to divide, oops, they're both the same color. They're going to divide to get them to our next step. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. Let's draw our line. So all that remains now, I've divided both sides by 4, so I'm left with 5 plus b equals negative 3. I then have addition. That's actually right here. This 5 is positive, that's why it's being added. So I can undo that by doing subtraction. So I'm left with b equals negative 8. And if I go in and check my work, so I have 4 times 5 plus b equals negative 12. If b is negative 8, so I have 4, 5 plus negative 8. This right here simplifies to negative 3, so I have 4 times negative 3. And 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So my work checks out, which is good. If you want to see how to use the box method or using this other method, please see me and we can talk about that. Alright, let's talk about what happens if we have rational coefficients. Then we'll do our last couple examples here as well. So with rational coefficients, we do exactly the same process. So I'm going to write out PEMDAS. First thing that's being done is in the parentheses and then multiplying. So in order to get that undone, I want to get rid of the multiplying first. So there's multiplication right here. Now, I want to divide, but when I divide by a fraction, if you recall, that really means that we're multiplying by its reciprocal. So instead of dividing by 1/2, I'm actually going to multiply by 2/1. And then it needs to happen, remember, on both sides. So we're going to turn our 5 into a fraction as well. All that remains over on this side, this right here simplifies to 1. So I'm left with just w minus 4 equals 5 times 2 is 10. I'm going to add 4 then to both sides, and I'm left with w equals 14. If I go ahead and check this, so I have 1/2 w minus 4 equals 5. If I say that w is 14, so I have 1/2 of 14 minus 4 equals 5. 14 minus 4, this first part here is what gets done first because it's in parentheses. 14 minus 4 is 10. And 1/2 of 10 is 5. So it checks out. Last example here we go. Write out PEMDAS. Now, parentheses again are done first, multiplying after. Here's the multiplication. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.4. If I do that, I'm left with w minus 7. And 18 divided by 0.4 is 45. Add 7 to both sides, creates a 0 pair. I'm left with w on the left. 45 plus 7 happens to be 52. And that's hopefully my answer. So let's go ahead and check that. So 0.4 w minus 7 equals 18. Substitute 52 in for w. This gets done first because it's in the parentheses, so 52 minus 7 is 45. And if I use my calculator here, 45 times 0.4, 4, that gets me 18. And that makes me happy. Alright, this is the end of Lesson 5. If you have any questions, please let me know.